Hey y'all, I am back with another episode of Blacksmith Tools. So far I've done 3 of these. The first one I've covered the anvils and the forges that I use. The second video was hammers and tongs and a swage block. And the third video I didn't really include in this series, but it's still Blacksmith Tools, was the video on jigs, how to make them and how to use them. And it's just a short video, it's not a very long, in-depth explanation because there's so many different styles and types of jigs that you can make. But today I'm going to change it up and we're going to talk about some of the power tools that I use. Now, just starting out, you can get by with mostly all hand tools. Instead of grinders, you can use files. Instead of power saws, you can use a hacksaw. But a lot of that stuff takes a lot more work and a lot more time, which is fine if you're just starting out, but once you get more into it, you're going to want to upgrade those. And to start with, we're going to talk about grinders. Now, just your plain old regular angle grinder, you can do a lot with. You can cut, grind, shape. There's different kinds of wheels that you can put on these for different things. And a little practice, you can do a good bit of finish work with just an angle grinder. And then you have bench grinders. This is just a wheel on a motor, and they do a fair amount of stuff. Mine I have set up with a rock on one side and a wire wheel on the other side to clean up the scale, forge scale and stuff off a lot of the pieces before I finish them. I'm going to move over to my other one, which was a big upgrade for me at the time, and I'll tell you about it. When I first started out, like most people, I got the little 1x30 from Harbor Freight. And I actually burned up a couple of these, but they're a decent tool for no more than what they cost or what they did at the time. They may be more now. And the belts are fairly cheap for them. But when I upgraded, I went to an Ameribraid 2x72. This video is not sponsored, but I do highly recommend them. They have great customer service and a great product. But this is a 2-inch belt, 72 inches long, and they come with all kinds of attachments you can get with these things, from little bitty small wheels up to big contact wheels, the flat platens. They make them where they tilt. This is a pretty good chunk when you go to buy one of these. This one, I think when I bought it, was right at or a little over $1,000. And I think their new setup now with all the attachments is about $3,000. But they're very good tools. Now for this one, I have belts ranging from 36 grit all the way up to 2,000 grit. And scallop belts, surface conditioning belts, which is like Scotch-Brite. And these are very useful in finishing work, especially if you want to polish something out. This speeds up the process a lot. So as far as grinders, that's about all I've got on hand, and I'm going to move over to our next power tools. Now, another good tool to have for your blacksmith shop is a drill. I recommend both if you can. Some of these smaller drill presses are not very expensive compared to some of the larger ones, which can be very expensive, but a good hand drill, either corded or cordless, and a drill press. If you need a nice straight, true square hole, you really need a drill press for that, because it is really hard to eyeball a straight hole. But some of the things I make, like these coffee scoop spoons, where they're rounded, I can't really stick them in the drill press, so I fit them on something and use the hand drill. A lot of the other things, like knives and stuff that I make, where I need a straight, true hole for the handle pins, I use the drill press. Another tool that is not a must-have, but is very handy to have, especially when you're doing small twists, or you want to do an alternating twist and you just want to heat up one section. And also I use a lot when I make dinner bells, when I forge the triangle, and I just want to bend the corners, I can just heat up that one spot to bend, is a settling torch. Now this is not going to be a cheap tool because you'll have to buy bottles along with the gauges and the whole torch set, and you're going to spend a few $100s. But if you're starting out, I wouldn't recommend go jump right into it and buy a torch. But when you get there and you're ready to buy one, get you a decent brand, good torch, a cutting head, a rosebud head, and a soldering head. Now, some of the smaller stuff I do, I'll use the soldering head just so I can really concentrate the heat in one tiny location. And if something, I'm working on a bigger piece, I'll swap to a rosebud. Now the torch I have on here is a smaller one. There's a lot of the stuff I need, I don't need a big torch to do. But it's a very good tool to have in a blacksmith shop. Now the next thing is not just for blacksmiths. If you farm or you mechanic or anything, I recommend you get a welder and you learn how to weld, because it is a very good tool to have. Because not only do I blacksmith, we farm some too, and something's going to break that you're going to need to weld it back. Now I've got two different ones here, and hopefully you can see them both. I've got a Hobart Stickmate stick welder, which is the first welder I ever bought, and I've got a Lincoln Pro MIG. And the Lincoln is a wire welder. I use it for smaller light duty stuff. As far as like if I break something here on the farm, and a lot of times it's rusty and old, I'll go to the stick welder. And it's better, to me, it's better using a stick welder for heavier stuff and things that are rusty and it's not real clean, because when you're using a wire welder, it needs to be fairly clean. I got one more tool I'm going to talk about, and I'll grab it and be right back. This one is definitely not a necessity, but is very handy when you need it, is a porter band, a metal cutting bandsaw. And it's very handy on different things. I use it a lot when I'm cutting pipe, or if I'm cutting something that's longer or thicker. It's going to take a while with a angle grinder with a cutoff wheel, and I want a clean cut. Now, I can cut it with a torch, but I'm not super good with it, and I don't always get a good clean cut. But with this, you do. So, like I said, this one's not a necessity. They're not too awful cheap, but they're not too awful expensive. I think Harbor Freight's got a decent one now for an affordable price. But as far as this video on tools, I'm going to leave it at that. There's so much more to talk about. There's, I mean, thousands of tools really, if you want to really get in depth of different styles and kinds of stuff. And I'm going to keep this series going. We'll just hit the spots here and there. If y'all want to comment something you might want to see, or something a little more in depth to talk about. But I'm going to leave it there for tonight. I hope y'all enjoyed it. See you on the next one.